Hello and welcome to Rural TV Australia. Field days are an iconic part of the Australian rural life, an opportunity for farmers to catch up with farmers and to kick the tyres on that new piece of equipment. But the coronavirus has put enormous pressure on those organisations that put on these events, and many are in danger of not returning when this pandemic is over. As I mentioned in our last post, field days have a significant financial impact on those communities that host them and on our national economy as a whole. So to give us a better understanding of where our field days stand, I'm joined by Wendy Franklin, Manager of Tokau Field Days in New South Wales and Secretary of the Association of Agricultural Field Days of Australasia, and that's quite a mouthful. And welcome to Rural TV, Wendy.
Thank you. It is a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes. Wendy, how many field days have been impacted by COVID so far this year?
Almost all. I think there was one that went ahead in March, just before this all came about, but everybody else has been impacted, but some more than others.
Are there any likely to go ahead?
No, not at this stage. I think that people, certainly any that I'm aware, all of our members have cancelled. I'm aware that there is the odd one that's still trying to go ahead, but that changes on an almost daily basis as to whether they can, and they need to take local advice and look at the current situation. But you know, they'll all be impacted because even if things are, if you're in a fairly remote area, when you have a field day, you have exhibitors and visitors come from far and wide, and that just can't happen.
So, we know the financial impact, given the figures that we got from the Henty team. Why are field days so important to rural and regional Australia, do you think?
I think that maybe field days haven't been so good at promoting themselves and what they do, and so this has been an opportunity to do that. But the impact that they have on regional communities just from holding an event is massive, because they bring in so many people from, and that's what regional communities need. They don't need their own money, they need other people's money. And that's what field days will do. They'll bring exhibitors and they'll bring visitors from far and wide. They all have to stay somewhere, they all have to eat somewhere, and they all buy fuel. So there's a huge injection of money into those regional communities. But then aside from that, most field days, in fact all of our members, do a lot to support their local communities with any funds that they make. So in places like Lucendale in South Australia, run almost entirely by volunteers, they bring in all the people to their community, and then when they make the money, they give it all out to their school, to their local community. And so they're going to be impacted as well, because that money isn't there. The other impact is, of course, all the people that decide from the Rotary clubs and the schools that have stalls at those events. They miss out. And I know at our event, our local school, it's the only fundraiser they do all year, and they make something like $20,000. That's a significant impact to those communities.
And what sort of impact is it having on the organisations themselves?
Oh, well, just massive a difference. It depends, a lot of it depends on how far out you cancel. And I go back to Lucendale again, cancelled less than a week from their event. All their expenses have already been incurred. So their loss is something in the vicinity of about $300,000. And when you look at a small regional community like that, that's run mostly by volunteers, they don't have that amount of money in reserves. And I suppose, like all the rest of us, no one really imagined that events would be completely cancelled outright. So their loss has been massive. And for us, we were able to cancel about 7 weeks out. Makes all the difference. You know, you don't spend the last $50,000 on marquee hire, the $30,000 setting up all the electrical, all those expenses we didn't incur. You cancel a week out and you've incurred all your expenses.
So how many are in danger of not returning?
I think there are a couple. I think without assistance from the government, I think that there's a couple that won't make it back. And they're just so important. They're important not only from a regional aspect, from agriculture. You know, who doesn't need to know where our food comes from? And I think field days have a significant impact on that. We aim not only to, we're not here just to sell things to people. There's a high educational component. You know, we'll sell you the things to make a fence, but while you're here, we'll teach you how to build it. We have little gardens set up so that kids can dig through the soil and dig out a carrot. You know, we want them to understand they don't come in plastic bags from the supermarket. This is where a carrot really comes from. You're never too young to learn about agriculture, and it's so important. And I think this pandemic has taught us that we need to be doing more for ourselves here in Australia.
And what would you like from government?
We need a couple of things. We need support for individual events depending on how much they've financially been impacted. We need support for them to recover. They need an injection of cash from the government. And that is an acknowledgement of how important they are to regional Australia and to agriculture as a whole. And for our organisation, the AAFDA, we really need some funding so we can hold a funded conference for all of our members so we can upskill them on areas so that they're not in this position again. They need to have a little bit of a look at finances and while it's great to support the community, they need to have some money in reserves as well, which is really important. They also probably need some social media, digital marketing component to help them with their promotion of the comeback, and that's probably something that they haven't, the older volunteers that run a lot of these events aren't that well versed on. So there's just a lot of things we'd like to train our members on, and I know that if we held a conference they would not be able to afford to come, so we'd like to see that funded from the government as well.
Has there been any response so far?
There's been a lot of questions asked of us, of how many members we have, how much they've been impacted, and we would like to see probably our members have a little bit more of that information. I know some of our members, Henty, did an extensive study a few years ago, and it just showed what a huge impact these events have. I'd like to probably do some more of those studies and find out just how much we do impact our local communities, because I think it's probably a bigger impact than a lot of us realise.
Look, I don't think there's actually any doubt. I don't think any figures that would come back would show they don't have a massive impact. I think they're a really important part of rural and regional Australia and that culture that we have in those areas that host them. So how hopeful are you of getting the support you need?
I am hopeful. I mean, I see the amount of support that's been given to the show societies, and that's been many millions of dollars. And I think that we need that acknowledgement that as far as agriculture comes, there's no one more important and more focused on agriculture than field days.
Thanks for talking to us, Wendy, and please keep us updated as this progresses, and no doubt we will stay in touch and talk about this more over the coming months.
Thank you, and I hope I've got some good news for you soon.
Let's hope government steps in to support our field days, and stay tuned to our channel for updates. Of course, if you love rural and regional Australia, like and subscribe to Rural TV Australia's social media as we focus on a brighter future for our rural communities.